Welcome to this week's episode of the Jewish Diaspora Report's This Week in Diaspora History. Let's get started. (22nd of Iyar, 1919), Romania. Romanian government granted citizenship to all native-born Jews. During World War I, 882 Jewish soldiers died defending Romania, which brought about the creation of the Greater Romania after the Paris 1919 Peace Conference. The enlarged state had an increased Jewish population corresponding with the addition of the communities of Bessarabia, Bukovina, and Transylvania. On signing the treaties, Romania agreed to change its policy towards the Jews, promising to award them both citizenship and minority rights, the effective emancipation of the Jews of Romania. The 1923 Constitution of Romania sanctioned these requirements, meeting opposition from the National Christian Defense League and rioting by far-right students. Political representation for the Jewish community in the interwar period was divided between the Jewish Party and the Federation of Jewish Communities of Romania. During the same period, a division in ritual became apparent between the Reformed Jews of Transylvania and the usually Orthodox ones from the rest of the country, while Bessarabia was the most open to Zionism and especially the socialist labor Zionism. The Jewish population of Greater Romania was 728,000 Jews by ethnicity and 756,000 Jews by religion. The popularity of anti-Jewish messages was nevertheless on the rise and merged itself with the appeal for fascism in the late 1920s. Both contributed to the creation and success of new types of anti-Semitic discourse. The idea of a Jewish quota in higher education became highly popular among Romanian students and teachers. After World War II, between 280,000 and 380,000 Jews were murdered or died in various forms on Romanian soil, many in the war zones of Bessarabia, Bukovina, and Soviet territories under Romanian control. 25th of Iyar, 1275, Bordeaux, France. King Edward I of England ordered the cessation of persecution of Jews in Bordeaux, France. The first written evidence of the presence of Jews in Bordeaux dates to the second half of the 6th century. A document from Bordeaux in 1072 refers to Mont Judaique, outside the walls of the city, where the Jewish cemetery was once located. In 1075, the port was even referred to as Port Judea. While Bordeaux was under English sovereignty in 1154 to 1453, the Jews were spared many of the edicts of expulsion issued by the kings of France, though they were nominally expelled in 1284, 1305, and 1310. The anti-Jewish measures introduced by the English kings were undoubtedly aimed at extorting money, since the Jews continued to reside in Bordeaux and pursue their activities in spite of the royal expulsions. In 1275 and 1281, Edward I intervened on behalf of the Jews of Bordeaux, who were being overtaxed by the nobles. However, by 1290, the Edict of Expulsion, that was a royal decree issued by King Edward of England, expelled all Jews from the Kingdom of England. Edward advised all sheriffs in all counties that he wanted the Jews expelled by no later than All Saints' Day, November 1st of that year. The expulsion edict remained in force for the rest of the Middle Ages. The edict was not an isolated incident, but the culmination of over 200 years of increasing anti-Semitism within England. The edict was eventually overturned more than 350 years later, during the Protectorate, when Oliver Cromwell permitted the Jews to return to England in 1657. 26th of Iyar, 1747, Akko, Ottoman Empire. Rabbi Moses Chaim Luzzatto, the author of Mesilat Yesharim, passes away. Moses Chaim Luzzatto was a scholar and mystic of the 18th century. He was born in Padua, Italy, to a distinguished Jewish family and spent his childhood studying Bible, Talmud, Halakha, as well as secular literature and classical language. His knowledge was impressive, and he quickly earned a reputation as a scholar of rare ability. When Luzzatto was 20, he joined a Kabbalistic group and immersed himself in the mystical studies. When word got out of Luzzatto's teachings, the rabbis of Venice became alarmed, considering such mystical activities as dangerous. The rabbis believed that Luzzatto and his followers might be a Sabbatean heretical group, one of the many followers of the teachings of the false messiah, Shabtai Tzvi. Luzzatto's house was searched, and evidence that he was engaged in magical practices was found. He was compelled to cease and desist from teaching about Kabbalah. Under pressure, Luzzatto left for Amsterdam in 1735, where he lived until 1743, writing about Kabbalah, but never teaching the mystical practices any longer. In 1743, Luzzatto and his family traveled to Akko in the Ottoman Empire, where they settled. Luzzatto died along with his family shortly thereafter in 1746 in a plague. Luzzatto was 39 at the time of his death. He left several Kabbalistic writings as well as ethical treatises. 27th of Iyar, 143 before the Common Era, the Greek provinces of Judea. Demetrius II had given to the Jews of Judea the crown money which they had annually levied. He thus recognized the independence of Judea under Shimon Hashmonai. The Hasmonean priestly family is sometimes better known as the Maccabees. This priestly family revolted against the Seleucid Greeks for attempting to Hellenize or force Greek culture and religion onto the land of Judea. Simon, the brother of the famous Hanukkah figure Judah Maccabee, continued the family struggle for Jewish independence in their homeland. Simon assumed the leadership in 142 BCE, receiving the double office of High Priest and Prince of Israel. One of the warring Greek leaders, Diodotus, made diplomatic overtures to the Jews in order to have them join with him against his Greek opponent, Demetrius II. The historian Josephus justifies this claim by suggesting that Demetrius had once persecuted the Jews. In 142 BCE, Diodotus dispatched troops to capture Jonathan the Hasmonean. Although Simon paid money to Diodotus as a ransom for his brother, Diodotus had him executed anyway and attempted to attack Jerusalem. Simon quickly becomes a close ally of Demetrius II, Diodotus' Greek opponent, who granted extensive freedoms to the Jews for their loyalty. This freedom included the freedom from taxation for the Jews of Judea. This is later seen as the moment when the Hasmonean Jewish state achieves independence. The Hasmonean dynasty ruled a semi-independent Jewish region from 140 BCE to 37 CE. Forces of the Roman Republic eventually conquered the Hasmonean kingdom in 63 BCE, and Herod the Great displaced the last reigning Hasmonean client ruler. However, not without trying to use the dynasty to his own advantage, and married Miriam, a Hasmonean heir and princess, to provide him with the credibility to kingship over the Jews of Judea, connecting himself to the Hasmonean dynasty. This has been another episode of the Jewish Diaspora Reports, This Week in Diaspora History. Don't forget to check us out on social media at jdr.podcast and check out some of our latest episodes on your favorite podcast source. We'll see you next time.